And see the difference. Really, they were wasting their time in Spanish? Doesn't look like. Did by receiving some of that instruction in Spanish hinder their education? I don't think so. Okay? Now, see that we can see there is a trend. Okay? It's happening the same in the first cohort and in the second cohort. See what's happening here. Our native Spanish-speaking kid, remember that we used to call the pobrecito? Is outperforming our native English kid when our native Spanish-speaking kid is instructed in dual language instruction and the native English kid is instructed in mainstream. So we're not only closing the gap, we are outperforming the native English speaker. And of course, ahora sí el pobrecito, ¿verdad? Ok, el pobrecito que lo dejamos en el programa que no es el ideal. Ok? So here you can make two comparisons. You can compare native English speakers versus native English speakers, native Spanish speakers versus native Spanish speakers, but also native Spanish speakers versus native English speakers. And the same is happening in math, science, and social studies.
And it says here tax, but we're noticing another interesting trend. Students who are taking the AP Lit test in Spanish, they're now in dual credit AP English. Because it's the same thing.
And we're going to go there. We're going to get there. Okay, let's move a little bit fast because now I think it's pretty much time for us to
Shall
go
I just
to the...
flip through the slides?
I'll go pretty fast.
Back?
Just go back. Now, we don't want kids to test too many times, right? See what's happening here. Our native English speakers, they had no need to test again. They all passed that test in the first implementation. Our dual language kids required much less than their peers instructed in the traditional programs. Okay? And of course, what we don't want, failure. And what happens with failure? Zero. None of our students eventually failed in that test. They pass it either in the first, in the second, or in the third implementation, but eventually they pass it. Can we say the same from our regular population? Unfortunately not. What's going to happen with these kids? They're going to stay behind. Either they're going to stay behind or they're going to drop out. That's what we want for our population? No. Okay? But at the end, as parents, many here are parents, right? What do you want for your kids? You want for your kids to be successful. And here, I want to clarify something. Many people think that the goal of the dual language program is for a kid to learn 2 languages. That's not true. Okay? It is by learning those 2 languages that the kid becomes smarter. You see, here is not only, oh, they did well in the English. No, they did well in math, in science, and in social studies. It's not only an issue of they can speak in 2 languages. It's an issue that these kids proven to be smarter than the average. See how many of our kids got commended. 61%, and you were asking about native English speakers in the dual language program. And unfortunately, there's a trend right now to do dual language for the left student. That famous one-way dual language. Okay? And what happens with a native English speaker? He's being left behind. And that's not fair. Okay? Dual language, and paraphrasing the Thomas and Collier, the beauty of dual language is that it works. And it works for all. Okay? All our students can be highly successful in dual language. This is not a program exclusive for limited English proficient students, but for all students. Okay? So if you want your kids to be successful, see where you want to see your kids. Now let's see a little bit just the graph for high school performance. So for example, go to the next one.
Yes, sir.
You want your kids to graduate from high school. 100%. This is our fourth cohort to be graduated, and they're going to be graduating again 100%. We have had 100% graduation for 4 consecutive years in the dual language program. Unfortunately, that's not what we can say from our school district. Okay? Now, what is the first thing that your kid's going to need to go to college? Graduate from high school. And the second one?
DAP.
Do you know what? It's called money. Okay? It's called simply money. Okay? How much it costs to go to college? Lots of money. Okay? Here in the Rio Grande Valley, our 4-year college, and it's one of the less expensive colleges in the United States, it costs around $8,000 a year for a kid to go to college. Okay? That's $32,000 for a 4-year degree. Do you have that money right now to pay college for your kids? Hey, that's a brand new car, right? Hey, I'm going to buy a car rather than send my kid to college. Wouldn't it be better if government paid for that kid to go to college? So what do your kids need? A scholarship. And what's the step 1 for getting a college? You need the Distinguished Achievement Plan. In Texas, we have 3 different graduation plans. We have one called minimum requirements. In Spanish, we call them de panzazo, ¿verdad? Así, de apenitas program, ¿no? Barely made it. Sí, ¿a poco no así?
Just by the skin
Now,
of their teeth.
think about it. If you were a college scout looking for kids, would you look for that kid? Would you be willing to bring that kid to your university and invest money in that kid? I don't think so. If he barely passed high school, probably he's not going to pass college. Then we have a second level that is called the recommended plan. I don't know why the state called it the recommended, okay? But that's our average graduation program. And then we have the Distinguished Achievement Plan. Now, why DAP is so important? For example, here in the Rio Grande Valley, the requirements to receive a scholarship from UTPA are virtually the same requirements than to graduate DAP. So if your student is graduating DAP,